Okay, look, this felt like such an Underwhelmed movie. Now please don't cover my head, let me explain. This movie is not all bad. I'm gonna give it its flowers, but there are certain aspects of it that I think could have been better. But let's start with the positives. From the outset, the aesthetic is outstanding. I love the throwback New York, but futuristic. New York, it feels like its own character. And when Galactus shows up, you can kind of feel the global threat. The whole planet is fighting back. Granted, it's done through newsreels, but nonetheless, it looks... God, it looks fantastic. I like that aspect of it. How it shows the planet is reacting, the planet is coming together, which you kind of hope that's how it would be, but you know, you're not guaranteed that. Also the bit with like the cult of Galactus, that makes complete sense. Also curiosity, you know how they mentioned that the cult of Galactus was going to scale Mount Everest? Did anyone else catch the joke that it's because they want to be the first to see their savior when he comes from the heavens because it's the highest point on the planet? Just curious if anyone else got that, because that brilliant touch. Also, it's not an origin story, which to me at least is a good thing. The whole origin is kind of talked over the course of about like 3 minutes? Well, we're thrown right into their family dynamic that feels real. We see the Fantastic Four have, on some level, shaped the world into a better place. Sue is in the UN, while Reed has his own TV show for kids. Ben is a local hero who's cheered, and Johnny is arguably the most eligible bachelor on the planet. I also really enjoy all the interactions and the chemistry that the characters have with each other, from Johnny, Ben, Sue, and Reed. They all feel like an actual family. Arguably, the film's biggest strengths are the moments when we slow down and we see their conversations. The thing isn't, oh no, I'm a monster. Kids love him. Johnny is quippy, but in this case, it works, like Rocket Raccoon. Solid. Sue and Reed have a realistic married couple dynamic, and their chemistry is very clear, on and off screen.
Cheers to that, babe.
Cheers to that, darling.
Listen, these are gorgeous. I think that's my favorite image so far.
Chiari, you are not...
When the Silver Surfer shows up, it feels like an actual global threat. And I like the actress, I like Julia Gardner, and I like the design. Although I'd say I kind of would have wanted to have seen more of her backstory, but I digress. She heralds our end, she heralds Galactus, but she does it in a sorrowful way. You can see it in her eyes, which, to her credit, through the CGI, you can see her acting. She doesn't want to do this, but she must. Galactus will come to Earth soon to destroy it, but our heroes will answer the call, go into space to negotiate with him to try and undo this planetary threat. But Galactus gives them the ultimate ultimatum. Give me your kid and I will spare the planet. Obviously, the team says no, and it's a pretty entertaining like runaway sequence. Johnny is actually able to harm Galactus on some level. They're able to handle the Silver Surfer for the most part, and they work like a team, and I really like that part. But then they did manage to slow down Galactus, but Reed is way too damn honest at a press conference when he actually tells the planet, hey, he wants our kid, and we said no, which, like, on some level, dude, lie. On some level, I get it because he's a scientist and he's kind of duty bound to be honest, right? He doesn't lie. He doesn't know how to. On some level, that's your kid. And I think that's one of those aspects that I kind of have a problem with is, dude, that's your son. You protect him at all costs. Now, that said, there could have been an interesting, like, who was it? It was Hitchcock that said, if there's a bomb underneath the table, but only the audience knows, we're stressed because the characters don't know that that bomb is there, but we know it's ticking and we know it's going to go off. What if Reed had lied to the planet and they knew that they were lying, and then maybe 2 weeks before Galactus shows up, the Silver Surfer arrives and tells the planet, hey, you could force them to give up the kid and your planet is saved, and then the planet turns on the Fantastic Four. And then what if at that point they release the Fantastic Four's old villains to try and track them down and take Franklin by force, but instead the villains help them and say, might be bad guys, I just wanted money. And someone else can say, like, I just wanted to rule the city. I'm not gonna turn over a child for God knows who, and have the villains stand up for them. Like, I think that could have been cool, but no, instead Reed is too honest. They're vilified in the public, rightfully so, on a large scale, and Sue tells the world, I will not sacrifice my child for the world, but I will not sacrifice this world for my child. Which, yeah, fair. Now, the whole planet teams up, but the server kind of screws that plan over until Johnny calls her out in her own language, playing for her, not the sorrows, but like the thanks and the grace from her home planet. They sent out like a radio signal hoping that she'd hear it, which kind of completely flips her and she runs away. And that's poignant here. She's a tragic figure. She doesn't want to be here. She has to be for her planet to save her family. Sue and Reed do have some realistic marriage issues and some not so realistic things when Reed says that he understands why people are scared and that it makes sense to give her Franklin. Not that he would do it, but it's logical, it's an option, it's there. Like, he speaks not necessarily in a way where he's refuting it. He talks in a way as if the option's really on the table, which, dude, that's your son. That option is not on the table. At some point, you need to shut off being a scientist and be a dad. And I will get to that. It's a trolley problem, and as a parent, I can understand. That said, Galactus comes for Franklin, but as a family, they manage to fight back until they're almost able to get him into the void. Until the Silver Surfer, with an assist, comes in clutch and forces him in to save the family. Until Doctor Doom shows up 4 years later. And scene. So, a lot of the things that they got right was, first off, the designs, everything. The designs were great. Galactus looked awesome, mostly. Some of the CGI was shit. I'll be honest, Johnny never looked like he was flying. Like, he looked like he was just like in place the whole time rather than looking dynamic like how the other films made him look. Ben Grimm, the Thing, looked great in some shots while he didn't look great in others. But to their credit, the CGI and trying to mask everything, you could see some of the expression of the actors, particularly when he says, "Are you pregnant?" Like, you can see his face. So I credit to them there. But other times the Thing just didn't look great. Elements were seemingly thrown in and then never really explored. The Mole Man is there until he isn't. And also, why aren't there more villains trying to help them fight Galactus? It's a planetary threat. I have powers. Let me go fight. I'm just throwing all these out there. Also, the talk with Reed and Sue out in the snow with Franklin in the little trolley, that seemingly came out of nowhere, and that reeks of reshoots. Maybe trying to add a little more, I guess, making Reed seem like a better father? I'm not quite sure. Now, those are all minor things. I'm about to throw a lot of criticism at this film, but it mostly comes from an execution and storytelling perspective. Okay, first, Franklin should have been the one to push Galactus back into the void, not the Silver Surfer. I understand the selfless sacrifice, that makes sense, but they should have given Franklin a Gohan moment. Where his mother is struggling, being pushed, Galactus is threatening her, and he has a moment where he protects his mom, and he has a burst of energy, and he's able to push Galactus back, and you see his power. Maybe he's so strong he cracks the city in two, but he is able to push back Galactus. I think that would have been a great moment. But let's go even further back. Why is Franklin ever left alone? I think it would have been more entertaining to see, like, one member of the team has to be with Franklin at all times, while the other three are trying to fight Galactus, right? Imagine Johnny flying, holding him, while the Thing is throwing stuff at Galactus, and Reed and Sue are trying to mess with them. Imagine Reed trying to bounce around, jump around through, holding Franklin, while the other three, again, are trying to hold him off. I think that's more entertaining, like, the worst game of hot potato. Also, why did Johnny and Ben, when they're doing the big cannonball spot, why did they only chin check Galactus? Why not throw him straight to his chest and knock him on his ass? That could have worked. And then Reed collapses a bunch of buildings trying to hold Galactus down while they're trying to get the void working. That could have worked as well. Also, if this guy's such a threat, again, calling the old villains to help you fight, I think that could have been entertaining. The Mole Man could have collapsed the ground in on Galactus using his tech, and they could have, I don't know, there's ways to fight back. Why not have the Silver Surfer help them and Galactus strip her of her powers? But then she is a scientist, she's able to help Reed reopen the void, have her do that. And I'll keep going backwards. When it comes to Reed, my biggest problem with this entire film is how he felt as a dad, or his lack thereof of being a father. I believe that Sue loves Franklin. I believe Johnny and Ben love Franklin. But we never see that moment with Reed as a father. We never see that moment where he tells Franklin he loves him. Granted, we have scenes, I think 2 scenes, where he tells Franklin that, he loves him or he cares about him, where he's like, I'm going to let you tell me who you want to be because I'm trying to understand you, where he says that you scare me and that's okay. Like, but I understand what they were going for it, but it doesn't work. There were missed opportunities of Reed upgrading the crib to have a fire extinguisher just in case. What do you call them? What are they called? Airbags. Like, the crib could have had airbags, fresh supply of oxygen, fire extinguisher, a capsule on top in case of an earthquake. Like, make the crib a borderline like bunker, because, well, you never know, something could happen. Because that's how Reed shows that he cares. Upgrade the crib and be like, I can build better than this. That would have been perfect. And it comes with 5 different lullabies, and he goes through each of them. The last one's rock some music. And he gets mad. He's like, Johnny! And Johnny says, I will not have my nephew only listen to crap music. That could have been funny. There were chances for him to play with Franklin and smile, but he never does. There's never a time where he plays with him or really feels like a dad. Even in the lab, imagine him making the perfect cup of coffee because Franklin won't let them sleep at night. That's another thing. There are baby hijinks that could have been had, but they don't. One of the funniest parts of the whole movie is at the very end when they're trying to put in the car seat. That's hilarious. More of that. Imagine Johnny throwing the dirty diaper at Ben. Maybe Sue uses her powers to shut the guys up because I just got Franklin to sleep, and if one of you wake him up, I'm throwing you out of this 42nd story building. But Dad, again, Reed never feels like a dad to me. And I know this is unfair, but Superman had better father-son moments, and I'm not talking about Clark and Pa Kent. I'm talking about Metamorpho and his son. You could tell Metamorpho loved his kid. Reed will definitely raise Franklin. And that's my biggest issue. I mean, again, another throwline plot. What if Sue had pushed Galactus through and Sue died, but Franklin didn't bring her back? And that could be one way of dealing with Doctor Doom. Imagine the end credit scene was Doom coming and saying, I think I know how to bring your wife back. 4 years after Sue's death, and Reed's been raising Franklin on his own, struggling, trying to be a decent single father. And he says, I can bring back your wife. What do you want? Just a simple favor. And there you go, a Faustian bargain, just some ideas. But anyway, those are my biggest issues, among other things. But we can also go back a little further to the writing of this film. I think Galactus was the wrong call as the villain. He's too big of a threat. He's an Avengers level threat. But now you wasted him. Like, he could have been the big bad after Doctor Doom. Galactus is destroying planets, and where is he coming from? I mean, where is he? He's on his way to Earth. There you go. And hell, get the Celestials involved. Get the Eternals involved in this. He hates the Celestials, so he eats the planets. That way they can't come. Maybe that's it. Now, we all know why they put Galactus in this film. They were trying to shore up $1 billion box office. And no, they didn't. Now look, this movie could have been better. It didn't have to be an origin story, but I think it was maybe also too soon to introduce a kid that completely changes their dynamic, because we haven't seen their dynamic when it's just the 4 of them. I don't know. I feel like maybe Franklin should have been a sequel movie, if that makes sense. Also, what about Franklin's sister? There are dynamics there that could have been explored with his sister Valeria, who sometimes they're twins, sometimes she's older, sometimes she's younger. Like, there are aspects there that could have been used. Instead of this, overarching film, what if we get a story or a movie about their first conflict with, let's say, Mole Man? Or in my pitch, the Wizard. A guy with fantastical powers that can muster monsters, but all he wants to do is rule this mythical city, and the Fantastic Four intervene to try and help. And Reed can even say, magic isn't real, it's just science on another level. And there's options of Sue in there, Johnny, taking on a dragon, a fire-breathing dragon at that. That could really use these characters to their strengths, but it doesn't spoil what should have been a third film villain in Galactus, or again, an Avengers level threat in Galactus. For me at least, this movie is not fantastic, but it all comes down to the story and execution. By Reed being not the best father. I want to be very clear. Reed is not a good dad, but he is played by an actor that I know has a lot more talent than what we saw in this film. Pedro Pascal is much more talented than this. For me, at least, this film is a 6 out of 10. I might rewatch it. I don't know. It has some rewatchability, not as much as Thunderbolts. Thunderbolts was amazing. But yeah, what did you think of the Fantastic Four? Let us know down below. We greatly appreciate it, and we'll catch you all next time. We'll see you, everybody.